Number 10. Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old student with a pistol, and the shot that started World War I. This is the street in Sarajevo where it happened. June 28, 1914. A route that should have been safe. The first attempt failed. Princip walked away and stopped at a deli. He was eating a sandwich when history came to him. The Archduke's driver took a wrong turn. The car stopped to reverse. Directly in front of Gavrilo Princip. One shot. 6 weeks later, the entire world was at war. Austria, Germany, Russia, France, Britain, all of them. 17 million people died in the war that followed, every single one of them because of one wrong turn on one street in Sarajevo. Princip died in prison in 1918 from tuberculosis. He never fully understood the scale of what his bullet had started. 4 empires collapsed as a direct result of the war his bullet started. The Ottoman, the Austro-Hungarian, the Russian, the German. The map of Europe was completely redrawn. Countries that had existed for centuries were gone. New ones appeared that had never existed before. WWCI caused the Great Depression. The Great Depression caused Hitler. Hitler caused World War II. It all traces back to one sandwich stop in Sarajevo. He was 19 years old, too young to be executed under Austro-Hungarian law, so they put him in prison instead. He was dead within 4 years anyway. The spot where he stood is marked on the pavement in Sarajevo today. A footprint. The most consequential footprint in modern history. Number 9. Alexander Fleming. He went on holiday and forgot to clean his laboratory. That mistake saved 200 million lives. St. Mary's Hospital, London. September 1928. Fleming left his lab window open when he went on holiday. A spore drifted in from outside. When he returned, he found mold growing on his petri dish. Around the mold, every bacterium was dead. Something in the mold was killing them. The mold was Penicillium notatum. Fleming had accidentally discovered the world's first antibiotic. In a dirty petri dish he forgot to wash. Before penicillin, a simple scratch could kill you. A tooth infection was a death sentence. Minor surgery was often fatal from infection alone. During World War II, penicillin saved more lives than any weapon took. Soldiers who would have died from infected wounds survived because of Fleming's dirty lab. 200 million lives saved. Pneumonia, syphilis, scarlet fever, meningitis. All treatable because Fleming left a window open in 1928. Fleming won the Nobel Prize in 1945. He said the credit belonged to the mold, not to him. Without that open window and that forgotten petri dish, the world would look completely different. Infections that are trivial today would still be killing millions every year. The original contaminated petri dish sits in the British Museum today, the dirtiest and most important piece of laboratory equipment in human history. Number 8. Vasily Arkhipov, October 1962. A Soviet submarine surrounded by American warships. 2 officers voted to launch a nuclear torpedo. 1 voted no. This is where it happened. The Caribbean Sea. October 27, 1962. The most dangerous day in human history, and almost nobody knew it. The submarine had been underwater for days with no radio contact. Oxygen was running out. Crew members were passing out from heat. Depth charges were exploding around them. The captain believed war had already started. He voted to launch the nuclear torpedo. The political officer voted yes. Arkhipov voted no. The rules required unanimous agreement. The torpedo on that submarine carried the explosive power of the Hiroshima bomb. One launch would have triggered American retaliation within minutes. The chain reaction would have been unstoppable. American retaliation, Soviet full response. Within hours, the entire northern hemisphere would have been uninhabitable. Every person alive on Earth today exists partly because one man on a submarine said no. Arkhipov saved civilization and nobody knew his name for decades. Arkhipov convinced the captain to surface and attempt contact. The Americans stood down. The moment passed. The world never knew how close it came. He returned home to the Soviet Union. No medal, no recognition. He lived an ordinary life. The world did not learn his name until decades after his death. An American historian from the National Security Archive later called him the man who saved the world. He is the most important person most people have never heard of. Number 7. Nikola Tesla. He arrived in America with 4 cents in his pocket. He left humanity with the electrical system that powers everything you own. He arrived in New York in 1884 with 4 cents, a poem, and a letter of recommendation. Nothing else. He went to work for Thomas Edison. Edison promised him $50,000 to improve his DC electrical system. When Tesla succeeded, Edison refused to pay him. He called it an American joke. Tesla invented alternating current. Edison had direct current. A C could travel hundreds of miles without losing power. DC could not. Every power grid on Earth uses Tesla's system today. Tesla built the first major hydroelectric power plant at Niagara Falls. He turned a waterfall into electricity for an entire city. Nobody had done anything like it before. He held over 300 patents: a C motor, radio, X-ray technology, remote control, neon lighting. Most people have never heard his name attached to any of them. He died alone in a New York hotel room in 1943. Broke. Forgotten. The FBI confiscated his papers the same day. Everything electrical you own runs on the system Tesla designed. Every phone, every computer, every hospital, every factory on Earth, all of it his. Edison has his name on everything. Tesla has almost nothing named after him. History gave the credit to the wrong man. The entire modern world runs on what one broke Serbian immigrant invented and never got credit for. Number 6. Mao Zedong. Between 1958 and 1962, his decisions killed 45 million people. In 4 years. In peacetime. He called it the Great Leap Forward, a plan to transform China from a farming nation into an industrial superpower in 4 years. Farmers were ordered to abandon their fields and make steel in backyard furnaces. They melted down their farming tools to meet quotas. The crops rotted in the fields unharvested. Mao declared sparrows the enemy and ordered them exterminated. Without sparrows, insects multiplied and destroyed what remained of the crops. He had accidentally engineered a famine. While tens of millions starved, the Chinese government kept exporting grain to the Soviet Union to maintain the appearance of success. Officials who reported the famine were punished. 45 million people died, more than died in all of World War II. In 4 years, in peacetime, from decisions made by one man. Local officials lied about production numbers to avoid punishment. Mao received false reports of record harvests. He increased the export quotas. More food left the country. More people starved. He ended the program in 1962 when the scale of the catastrophe could no longer be hidden. He was never punished. He remained in power until his death in 1976. The Great Leap Forward killed more people than any other single event in human history. It is still rarely discussed outside of academic circles. 45 million people. Gone. In 4 years. Because one man decided farmers should make steel and sparrows should be killed. Number 5. Julius Caesar. He crossed one small river in northern Italy. That crossing ended 500 years of Roman democracy and created the template for every empire that followed. The Rubicon was a small river in northern Italy. Roman law stated that no general could cross it with his army. It was the boundary between military power and civilian rule. Caesar stood at the bank for hours. He knew crossing meant civil war. There was no middle option. He said the die is cast and crossed. The civil war lasted 4 years. Caesar won every major engagement. By 45 BC, he was the undisputed ruler of the entire Roman world. On March 15th, 44, BC 23 senators stabbed him 23 times in the Senate. They thought killing Caesar would restore the Republic. They were wrong. His death triggered more civil wars. His adopted son Augustus emerged victorious and became the first Roman emperor. The Republic was gone forever. Every Western government traces its structure back to what Caesar built. The title Kaiser, the title Tsar. Both are versions of the name Caesar. He also reformed the Roman calendar into the 365-day system that became the basis for the calendar every person on Earth uses today. July is named after him. The Rubicon today is a tiny stream in northern Italy. You could jump across it. The most consequential river crossing in Western history. The republic he destroyed never returned. Rome became an empire that lasted 500 more years, and its ghost still shapes every government on Earth today. Number 4. Genghis Khan. He started life as a slave. He ended it having killed 10% of every human being alive on Earth. The Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe. The largest contiguous land empire in human history, built in one lifetime. His father was poisoned when he was 9. He was captured and enslaved. He escaped. He united the warring Mongol tribes. He conquered the world. His military tactics were 600 years ahead of their time. Feigned retreats, psychological warfare, intelligence networks, coordinated cavalry movements across hundreds of miles simultaneously. Some regions of Central Asia lost 90% of their population. Cities that had existed for 1,000 years were reduced to rubble and never rebuilt. He also created the Pax Mongolica, the safest trade route in history. A merchant could travel from China to Europe without being robbed. The Silk Road flourished under Mongol protection. DNA studies have found that 16 million men alive today are direct descendants of Genghis Khan. He is the most reproduced human in history. He ordered his burial site kept completely secret. The soldiers who buried him were killed to keep the location hidden. His tomb has never been found. His conquest killed so many people that abandoned farmland across Asia turned back to forest. Scientists believe this actually cooled the Earth's temperature measurably, from enslaved child on an empty steppe to ruler of half the known world. No one in human history has done anything remotely like it before or since. Number 3. Adolf Hitler. On January 30th, 1933, he was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Within 12 years, 70 million people were dead. This is Europe in January 1933, recovering from one world war. Nobody believed another was possible. They were wrong. He applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts twice. He was rejected both times. History turned on an art school admissions decision. The Great Depression destroyed the German economy. Unemployment reached 30%. He offered simple answers. Blame someone else. Germany listened. 70 million people died. The deadliest conflict in human history. Entire populations erased. Cities reduced to rubble across 3 continents. At the peak of his power, he controlled almost the entire European continent, from France to the outskirts of Moscow, from Norway to North Africa. The decision to invade the Soviet Union was the mistake that ended everything. Every military advisor said no. He invaded anyway. It cost him the war. He died on April 30th, 1945 in a bunker beneath a burning Berlin. The city he had ruled from for 12 years lay in ruins above him. The world he left behind was divided between 2 superpowers for 45 more years. The Cold War was a direct consequence of the world he created. If one art school in Vienna had said yes to one application, the 20th century looks completely different. 70 million people might still have lived. Number 2. Christopher Columbus. On October 12, 1492, he stepped onto a Caribbean island. He thought he had found Asia. He had found 2 continents nobody in Europe knew existed. He sailed for 33 days across an ocean he believed was much smaller than it actually is. He was wrong about almost everything, and he changed everything. When Columbus arrived, an estimated 60 million people already lived in the Americas, civilizations that had existed for thousands of years, cities larger than any in Europe. European diseases arrived with Columbus and spread faster than any army. Smallpox, measles, typhus. Up to 90% of the indigenous population died within a century. 54 million people. The Columbian Exchange changed what every human on Earth eats. Tomatoes came to Italy, potatoes came to Ireland, corn came to Africa. The entire global diet shifted permanently. Columbus died in 1506 still believing he had reached Asia. He never knew he had found two entirely new continents. He never knew what he had done. Before Columbus, 60 million people, thousands of years of civilization. After Columbus, 90% dead within a century. European colonies replacing everything that existed before. Every person in the Americas today lives in a world that Columbus's voyage created. Whether their ancestors were the ones who survived it or the ones who came after it. Half the foods the world eats today came from the Americas Columbus found. Italian food without tomatoes? Irish food without potatoes? Indian food without chili peppers. The world eats differently because of one voyage. One ship. 33 days. 2 continents discovered. 60 million lives ended. The entire global diet transformed. One voyage changed everything. Number 1. Stanislav Petrov, September 26, 1983. A Soviet early warning system showed 5 American nuclear missiles incoming. His finger was on the button. He did not press it. He was alone in a bunker outside Moscow monitoring the Soviet nuclear early warning satellite system. It was the middle of the night. The system showed 5 American nuclear missiles launched from the United States and heading directly for the Soviet Union. Every alarm in the bunker was screaming. Protocol required him to report the launch immediately. Soviet leadership would have ordered a full retaliatory strike within minutes. There would have been no time for questions. Petrov thought, if America is attacking it, launches everything simultaneously. Not 5 missiles. 5 missiles made no sense. He decided it was a system error. He picked up the phone. He reported a system malfunction, not a missile launch. He was right. The satellite had malfunctioned. No missiles had been fired. If he had followed protocol, Soviet missiles would have launched within minutes. America would have responded. The exchange would have ended civilization as we know it. A full nuclear exchange would have triggered nuclear winter. The ash would have blocked the sun for years. Agriculture would have collapsed globally. Most survivors of the initial strikes would have starved. He was reprimanded by the Soviet military for not filling out his paperwork correctly that night. No medal, no recognition. He saved civilization and got a telling off for his forms. He retired and lived quietly in a small apartment outside Moscow. The world had no idea he existed. He saved everyone on Earth and nobody knew his name. 8 billion people are alive today partly because of what one man decided in the middle of the night in 1983. Most of them have never heard his name. 2 different Soviet officers separately prevented nuclear war. Arkhipov in 1962, Petrov in 1983. Neither became famous. Both saved everyone alive today. Many historians now believe September 26, 1983 was the closest the world ever came to nuclear war. Closer even than the Cuban Missile Crisis, because of one man working a night shift alone. The whole world was asleep. One man was awake in a bunker. He had seconds to decide. He made the right call. None of us ever knew. 10 people. 10 moments. Each one a hinge point in history where everything that came after depended on one decision made by one person. History does not move in straight lines driven by inevitable forces. It pivots on individual moments, individual decisions, individual people who happened to be in the right or wrong place. None of these moments looked significant before they happened. Sarajevo was a routine visit. Fleming's lab was just dirty. Petrov's night shift was just another shift. How many moments like these are happening right now that we will only recognize decades later as the point where everything changed? 10 locations on this map. 10 moments in time. Each one a place where one person's decision changed the direction of all human history. From Genghis Khan in 1206 to Stanislav Petrov in 1983. Nearly 800 years of history pivoting on individual human decisions. The most important people in history are sometimes the ones nobody remembers. The ones who prevented things from happening leave no visible trace of what they saved. Every decision these people made sent ripples forward through time that are still shaping the world you live in right now. A dirty petri dish, a pistol on a street corner, a radar screen in a bunker. The objects that changed history were never designed to do so. Ordinary people in extraordinary moments, not kings, not generals planning from safety. Individual humans who happened to be standing in the right place at the right time with the right decision to make. 10 people who held history in their hands. Some knew it, some never did. All of them changed everything that came after. History is being made right now, by people who don't know it yet, sitting in ordinary rooms, making decisions that seem small, just like all of them did.